Maria Irena Boyé is born in 1926 in the Polish town of Kostrza. The name Tapta is set to date from her early childhood. Once, as a little girl, I arranged all my toys in a beautiful circle and started to dance between them and sing, I'm Tapta, Tapta, Tapta. The family liked it, and I became Tapta forever. The Warsaw Uprising of 1944, in which Tapta took part, left the city in ruins. Looking back to that period in 1993, she says that the images of burnt and destroyed walls that nevertheless stay so strong had remained with her all life. These images continue to build up in me. In 1944, held in a German detention camp, she meets Krzysztof Wierusz-Kowalski. They marry while still imprisoned. After the war ends in 1945, the couple migrates to Belgium. After studying medicine for 1 year, Tapta changes course and enrolls in the textile department of École nationale supérieure des arts visuels de la Cambre de Bruxelles, where she graduates in 1949. 1 year later, the couple moves to Belgian Congo, now Democratic Republic of the Congo. The house in the Brussels suburb of Uccle, designed by the architect Gilbert Deneder, after a commission by Tapta and her husband, serves as the family residence from 1964 onward. The 1950s have been spent in the Belgian Congo, where Krzysztof worked as an engineer in shipbuilding. Tapta experimented with weaving techniques and textile materials. In 1960, after the independence of Congo, they return to Belgium with their 3 children, Joanna, Michal, and Ewa. In the 1960s, Tapta resumes weaving. The mezzanine of the house in Uccle has been designed and conceived as her studio, large enough to accommodate a loom. For some years, she manufactures clothes partly as a way to make money. She sells dresses to private clients, but later stops doing so as the contact with clients becomes unsatisfactory for her. Until the 1970s, she divides her time between manufacturing clothes that she gives to friends and producing autonomous wall pieces. These 2 interior shots of Tapta's home show her tapestries were perfectly integrated into the architecture of the house. The large piece hanging in front of the window is Tripartite Orange, 1968, measuring 260 by 300 centimeters and made of wool, linen, and various materials. It was presented by Tapta at the 4th International Biennale of Tapestry in Lausanne, 1969, and subsequently purchased by the Musée des Arts Décoratifs de la Ville de Lausanne. Her artistic career makes a quick start, especially her participation in the 4th National Tapestry Biennial in Lausanne in 1969 is a breakthrough. On that occasion, she discovers the work of colleagues such as Magdalena Abakanowicz and Sheila Hicks. In 1969, she also participates in the Days of Contemporary Tapestry in Paris and the International Conference of Experimental Tapestry in Madrid. Partly as a result of the encounter with like-minded artists, the loom becomes less important as Tapta's medium, while she's looking for other techniques to create her flexible sculptures. In 1971, Tapta has a solo exhibition at the Richard Vonke Gallery in Ghent. Richard Vonke is one of the pioneering contemporary art galleries in Belgium. This exhibition shows to what extent Tapta's ambition to break away from the traditional craft of weaving and textile art is already being accomplished. The card shows that in 1971, the artist is still using her full married name, Tapta Wierusz-Kowalski. Later, she will drop the surname and only use Tapta as her artist name. The house in Uccle has the character of a total environment for living, working, and showcasing Tapta's art. In 1976, Tapta is appointed as a professor at the La Cambre Art School in Brussels, where she will lead the textile design department, rebaptized by her as flexible sculpture souple, until 1990. In 1985, in an article published in Leonardo, she explains her pedagogical approach. I stimulate my students' curiosity by taking them to exhibitions, theater performances, to see works of art integrated into architecture. By opening their horizons as widely as possible, I try to help young creators find their personal language. Teaching art should not consist of teaching traditional techniques that are often no longer applicable to the present time or to today's sensibility. Technique is but the medium of the message, and the message depends on the richness of the individual artist. Elsewhere, she insists on refusing to teach weaving at La Cambre, defying the traditional image of the textile arts. My looms remain untouched. Tent for Chatting, Don't Accuser, 1973, is the first of a number of important environments that Tapta started making in the 1970s. As the title indicates, it is conceived as the tent for chatting, a soft, enveloping space for relaxation and interaction. These environments facilitate dialogue and conversation. They create a favorable climate for exchanges between persons and for intimacy. I do not believe a work of art should only be viewed. My work calls for touching, daily use. The current location of Tent for Chatting is unknown. In 1974, Tapta conceives her next environment, Forms for a Flexible Space, Formes pour un espace souple, for the third triennial of contemporary art in Bruges. In 1975, the work is part of her solo exhibition at the Palais des Beaux-Arts, currently known as Beaux-Arts, in Brussels. Her 19-year-old daughter, Eva Wierusz-Kowalski, assists in the setup. 1 year later, Eva dies unexpectedly. Tapta later donates the work to the Gordon Matt Clark Foundation in Antwerp for an auction organized to raise money for the preservation of Matta Clark's architectural installation Office Baroque, 1977, Forms for a Flexible Space. Like most of the donated artworks, ends up in the collection of the MU-HKA, Museum of Contemporary Art in Antwerp. Today, due to conversation problems, the original work is damaged beyond repair. In 2023, a reconstruction is produced for the exhibition Tapta Espace Souple with Greet Billet, Hanna Miletic, and Richard Van Lett at Wheels, Brussels. Throughout her career, Tapta prefers to make scale models for her projects rather than sketches or design drawings. 1981 is an important year for Tapta, with a group exhibition in Paris, Musée d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris, a public art project in Louvain-la-Neuve, and a contribution to the 10th International Biennale of Tapestry in Lausanne. Titled Elastic Structure, Structure Elastique, the work in Lausanne is a monumental black curtain measuring 4.5 by 5.5 meters, made of strips of thick synthetic rubber that the artist screwed or bolted together. This piece marks a radical turn in her oeuvre, away from textile and towards assemblages in more hard-edge, industrial materials. It is an artistic statement against the soft, feminine connotations of the tradition of textile art. I started to feel confined by the idea of textile art. We operated in a ghetto. The Lausanne biennials were lagging behind art, with a few exceptions. We reproduced in textile all the major art movements of our century, with a delay of some 20 years. The conversations always revolved around the same controversy. Is it still tapestry? This didn't interest me at all. It irritated and saddened me. In 1981, I exhibited my large rubber wall. It stood there like a foreign body, and it was at that moment that I decided never to exhibit again in Lausanne. In 1982, Tapta is invited by the Musée de la Tapisserie of Aix-en-Provence to exhibit in the neoclassical chapel that forms part of the museum. She makes a large site-specific installation that involves stretching long cables between the 6 pillars of the chapel. The work is called Tension. Several scale models of the installation are displayed in the sacristy. In Leonardo, Tapta writes about this work. Ropes rose from the ground, were coiled around the columns, and reached the ground again at the other side of the chapel, tied, linear, dynamic, provocative. Neoflexibles, a work from 1985, displayed here in the Artist Studio in Brussels, was later acquired by the Musée d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris. In 1987, the weekly magazine Le Vif, L'Express, publishes a two-page report on Tapta Studio at Avenue du Midi in Bruxelles. The building from the 1920s has a large split-level space with an overhead roof light and is well suited for the voluminous and heavy objects the artist is producing. As the journalist writes, we discover the artist evolving in perfect harmony with this immense white space whose walls are covered with empty shelves, unusual in their bareness. They are there only to exalt creative verve. We immediately note the complementary between the typical architecture of the period, with its gallery evoking a school or a prison, and the large black forms of Tapta. Tapta's contribution to the inaugural show of the Museum of Contemporary Art in Antwerp, MUHKA, in 1987, is Place of Transition, Lieu de Transition. This large installation is synthetic rubber, measuring 7.5 by 2.6 meters, is installed on the roof terrace of the museum. The project description by Tapta, which includes a schematic ground plan, states that the spatial structure of the work is a direct result of the way the flexible surface of the rubber is bent. The rubber sheet is held together by the structural connections and stays upright through the way it is curved. Marc Trivillier, a Belgian photographer renowned for his portraits of artists, photographs Tapta in her Brussels studio, 119 Avenue du Midi, around 1990. In 1990, Tapta contributes a floating sculpture to the exhibition Arte Lago at Lago di Monate in Italy. The work is titled At the Edge of Time, Au bord du temps. In the run-up to Tapta's large solo exhibition at Brussels, Michel Baudzan has several long interview sessions with the artist for a book that he will publish in 1994. Baudzan, born 1945, is a critic, writer, and curator. He and his wife, Karine Bienfait, are friends with Tapta. The work in the background of the picture is Cutting Through the Intangible, Taillé dans l'impalpable, 1993. One of the first installations in which the artist incorporates a light projection. Raising, Dressé, 1993, is one of Tapta's black sculptures in neoprene and metal, measuring 4 by 2 meters. Variable Geometry 3, floor, wall, Géométrie variable 3, sol, mur, from 1994, is an example of Tapta sculptures composed of various elements connected with hinges, allowing for a range of spatial configuration. The photographic series demonstrates this structural flexibility. For Venice, Pour Venise, is Tapta's work at Arte Laguna, an exhibition organized as part of the Venice Biennale in 1995. The 10-meter-long sculpture, made in steel with a weight of 1,200 kilograms, is installed in the waters of the Venetian lagoon. The two parts attached to the pole can move independently and turn through the cumulative effect of water and wind. The sides are painted black, whereas the shiny top and bottom surfaces are done in galvanized steel. Curator Ander Rottenberg of Zacheta, National Gallery of Arts in Warsaw, is impressed by the work, meets the artist. Tapta's major exhibition in Zacheta, 2 years later, is the direct result of this. In 1995, Raymond Balao, who was trained as an architect and a professor at La Cambre, photographs Tapta in a Venetian water taxi. That year, he collaborates with the artist on the creation of her work for Venice, Pour Venise. In 1996, for her installation at Galerie Etienne Tillemont in Brussels, Tapta floods the space with water to obtain an overall mirror-like reflection. The white triangular shape is a light projection. In 1997, Zacheta, National Gallery of Art in Warsaw, devotes a retrospective exhibition to Tapta under the curatorship of Ander Rottenberg. This is the first major exhibition by the artist in her native country of Poland. Open Minds, Esprit Ouvert, is Tapta's public sculpture erected in the business district near Brussels North Station in 1997. The work measures 17.12 by 5 meters. Tapta designs it with the help of her daughter Joanna, who is an architect. The project is commissioned by Belgacom, now Proximus, and WTC NV, and managed by the Brussels Capital Region. The work is inaugurated in September 1997, the same month that Tapta's exhibition in Warsaw is opening. A mere 3 months later, on December 27, the artist suddenly dies of heart failure.